The League of Women Voters East Shore and Brantford Community Television proudly present the 102nd State Representative District Candidates Debate, featuring Democratic candidate Robin Comey and Republican candidate Robert Imperato. And now, here's your moderator, Carol Reimers.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the East Shore, I welcome you to the 102nd Connecticut House of Representatives District Candidates Debate. My name is Carol Reimers, and I am president of the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. I live in Killingworth, and I will be the moderator for this debate. The League of Women Voters is a national, state, and local organization that is nonpartisan and welcomes all to join us. We are pleased to sponsor debates like this because we believe in empowering voters and defending democracy. The candidates for the 102nd House District seat are Robin Comey, Democrat, and Robert Imperato, Republican. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement on their qualifications, followed by questions. Each candidate will then have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question, followed by a 1-minute rebuttal as needed. A pre-debate drawing was taken, and it determined that Mr. Imperato will go first, and then we will maintain a rotation after that. So, Mr. Imperato, let's start with your 1-minute statement about your qualifications.
Well, thank you, Carol, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I was born, raised, educated, and have worked in Connecticut all of my life. I've been a member of the Brantford community for over 30 years, and I have educated 4 children through the Brantford school system, as well as volunteering for numerous clubs and activities. I currently serve as a member of the town's Board of Finance, which oversees and sets town-wide budgets, capital projects, appropriations, asset management, risk management, and risk mitigation. Prior to serving on the Board of Finance, I've held the position of RTM, which is Representative Town Meeting Member, from 2011 to 2017. As a member of the RTM, I served as chairman of the Public Services Committee, which is charged with budgeting, appropriation responsibility for the following departments: police services, fire services, public works, solid waste management, municipal engineering, animal control. Public Services Committee budgeting is about 44% of the town's budget.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Comey?
Yes, hello, I'm Robin Comey, and I am the Democratic endorsed candidate for state representative. I'm also cross-endorsed by the Working Families Party. I moved to Brantford about 25 years ago. We fell in love with the community, and we started a small business here and decided to raise our family here. I'm a small business owner. I'm a nonprofit leader. I'm a community organizer. I'm a healthcare policy advocate, and I am a champion for education issues. I also serve on the RTM. My priorities are your priorities. My strength is that I bring people together to solve problems, to find consensus on issues that are pressing this community. I have existing relationships with our local and state legislators and leaders, and a lot of you watching here today. I believe that our value is our collective voice, and I would be honored to have your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with the first question. 34 states plus the District of Columbia permit some form of no-excuse early voting, and 3 additional states conduct elections exclusively by mail. What measures would you support to enable maximum participation of eligible voters in Connecticut's elections? And Ms. Comey, you're first.
Well, I support providing opportunities for all folks to become registered voters as easy as we can make it. I mean, I love that Denise Merrill has made a priority and has made when you register to get your license, that you can also register to vote. Early voting would be important for not only the people in our community who are not really able to get to the polls on voting day, but also to providing the best access for democracy.
Mr. Imperato?
Yes, I believe in early voting. The no excuse absentee ballot has worked well, so I support the early voting. However, the motor voter law is currently not working. Registers of voters are not equipped to handle that at this point, so there's some issues. I know that the Register of Voter down in Greenwich is having problems where, again, voters are dropping off the voters lists, party lists. Again, the problem is there's no identification as far as if you're a citizen or not. So there's still some things to be worked through on that. So I would encourage us to continue the no excuse ballot at this point until we work out the bugs on the early voting situation. So I'm in full support of it. Again, we just need to work out the bugs.
Okay. Do you have anything further to add?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right, we'll move to the next question. What steps would you take to address the lack of fair and affordable housing for many of Connecticut's residents? And Mr. Imperato, you're first.
Well, that's a pretty hot topic these days. So the 830G, the intent of 830G, I believe, is a very valuable asset to the communities. However, what's happening is the developers are coming in, out-of-state developers are coming in, and they're riding, really steamrolling over our current law. And we need to change what's happening up at the state level. So really what we need to do here is count every unit in Brantford and every unit in every community that is not deed restricted but meets the criteria of affordable housing. So what's happening today is 10% of the stock needs to be deed restricted. And I think that puts towns like Brantford and other communities at risk. I believe that we need to move that out of the state's purview in looking at each one of these towns. So, for instance, we have community parks here, we have housing that meets that criteria. We should then move Hartford to change that, and that's the first thing I will do when I go to Hartford is put a bill forward that will change the current laws over 830G to count all housing that fits within the purview.
Okay. Ms. Comey?
Yes, affordable housing is an issue all over the state. I know that we have lots of towns that are struggling to meet their 10% within the 830G statute. I think that law, well-intended, has some unintended consequences, especially for some communities. I mean, we need to ensure that seniors, like the hundreds that I've seen on the campaign trail when I've been knocking doors, have affordable and safe places to live. I will always do my best for the interests of Brantford. We do need to revisit with the Legislative Housing Committee the deed restriction area of the 830G, and it's a barrier for, if it's a barrier then for communities like ours, then you betcha I will definitely look at that, and I think we have a very serious group of invested people that have been studying this and working on this issue for a long time, and I hope that we can use their knowledge to advocate forward for better solutions for for Brantford and for the seniors that live here. Last session, Representative Reed and Representative Butler from Waterbury put a bill to change the bill forward to change it, which would stop some of the predatory builders that are coming in, and that was useful in that. When I've been knocking around north of Route 1, there's been some issues where builders are coming in and they're buying the properties and letting them go into disrepair and then pushing down the property values of the area and then picking up more houses in that. We need to have opportunities to provide housing that is going to serve everyone. Thank you.
Do you have any more you would like to add, Mr. Rivera?
Yes, thank you. Just to make it clear, the first order of my business will be to go and repeal that bill again. We need to add clarity around this bill, and the people who live in that community should have a voice. So you could see from what came out last week that the voice of the people was stymied. So we need to make this very clear on how this process will be done, and we need to change it for all the towns for their benefit.
Ms. Comey?
Yes, I absolutely think. I mean, I come from an area of advocacy, and I think I'm appreciative when legislators have listened to me when it comes to having their voice heard, and I will always operate in the best interests of our community, and there is some changes that could be made to the bill, and I would work with the senior leadership and with the Legislative Housing Committee to see what we can do for our town.
Okay, any further you'd like to add?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. The next question. How should the legislature address the systematic inequities in the funding and outcomes of public education in Connecticut? And Ms. Comey, you're first.
Well, education is absolutely our number one funding stream that a state representative needs to protect, and I have been an advocate for public education. I have been finding funding streams from outside resources and communities, cities across the state are having some real difficult issues as far as making sure that their needs are met and that their children's needs are being met. In Brantford, we need to continue to fight for all our funding opportunities. Unfortunately, we haven't had much luck at the state level as far as changing that law with the education funding, the ECS funding. But we are going to just keep fighting and keep making sure that our community like Brantford is changing, and we continue to need additional funding streams so that our teachers are supported and our kids are supported as best as we can able. And I'm poised to make that argument to the legislature and to the governor.
Mr. Imperato?
Yes. First, they will secure Brantford's fair share of ECS fundings. That is extremely important. As we know what's happening, we need to continue to keep our public education system strong. We're seeing that the state is pushing back on towns that are in the more wealthy areas and not providing the funding that they had in the past. We must find a way to bring education to every student, prepare them for the entry into the job markets. We're seeing that there is a labor issue out in the state of Connecticut right now. We need to keep these people here. We need to create, again, some job opportunities for them. There needs to be a new funding formula that will take into consideration population, income, language, student enrollment, and free lunch programs. So I will fully support moving us in the direction of creating more funding for education here in the state and at the town of Brantford.
Ms. Comey, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Imparato said that that the trend is to hold back the wealthy communities from getting their fair share of the funding, and I would just like to say that towns like Brantford, and I've said this to leadership up in Hartford already many times, is that towns like Brantford are not wealthy, and in fact we have a 34% free and reduced rate at this point. We have 4 out of 10 of our kids are high needs kids. So, I mean, absolutely, we will fight for every dollar that we have. Lonnie Reed has done that over the years, and I will continue to represent this community and the people who live here and the people who have come to Brantford for great education.
Mr. Imperator, do you have more to add?
Yes, I didn't mean to imply that we were not looking to get our fair share. We certainly are. And just with the teachers' retirement benefit program, where the state was pushing that down on Brantford in excess of $2 million. So that all takes away from education. So again, if we're funding on the TRB side, it is going to affect what we have dollars for education. So we want to be sure that, again, we keep Brantford strong, we fight for our ECS funding, and continue every day to fight for it. Because if we let that slip, that's exactly what's going to happen. The state is going to take more money away from Brantford and other towns like us.
Ms. Comey, would you like to add anything else?
No, I think we'll both fight equally for all the funding we can get.
Okay, great. We'll go on to the next question. Do you support any changes in Connecticut's current gun legislation, for example, regarding ghost guns and/or in domestic violence situations? And Mr. Imperato, you're first.
Yes, I think we should ban ghost guns. I don't think they have any reason to be there. I mean, I believe that we have the most strictest gun laws in the country here in Connecticut. Ghost guns should be banned, but I think what we really need to do is take a look at our current laws and enforce those laws. So we'll have gun control for the folks that should not have guns. Again, looking at our current laws, there's no reason we should be having this problem. Again, we need to concentrate on the mental health portion of this issue. And again, we have the strictest gun laws in the country.
Ms. Comey?
Yes, I mean, I support the Second Amendment, absolutely. As a candidate, I was chosen as a candidate of distinction for Moms Demand Action. I'm for responsible gun ownership and responsible storage, and we need to keep the guns out of the hands of people with dangerous mental illness and with violent histories, felons. I support criminal background checks. I certainly don't want to see ghost guns or 3D printers, bad idea, and permitless carry as well. And most importantly, for me anyways, as a parent, is that I really think that we need to keep guns out of places where we take families and children. And that includes, I'm not a fan of the idea of arming teachers. And I do, mental health is absolutely a critical portion of what our crisis is in this country.
Mr. Imperato, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, obviously I do support the Second Amendment, and again, I think we just need to continue to work on the mental health issue here with gun control. Again, everybody is for safe guns, safe gun control. Thank you.
Ms. Comey, anything else?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, the next question. If elected, will you sponsor legislation to make Connecticut's Redistricting Commission nonpartisan with non-legislators instead of the current bipartisan legislator makeup? And Ms. Comey, you're first.
So the redistricting that will take place in 2020 after the census is important. We need to be wary of that. That's why everybody should be voting, getting out and voting on November 6th. As far as the bipartisan group, I really honestly don't know that topic. I certainly can imagine, I don't know, maybe Mr. Imparato can talk to it and share with me his knowledge on that issue. I would be interested in learning more about the process that it goes through at the legislature and maybe some ideas for improving it, if that's what that is. Thank you.
Mr. Imparato?
Well, redistricting is always a hot topic, and I'm probably in the same boat as you. I don't have a lot of depth on this, but the bipartisan piece of this, I believe, is important. However, we need to make sure it's done fairly and not leaning one way or another. So again, I would support anything that brings more voters into the system and creating a fair opportunity for all that are running for office.
Okay. Nothing else on this one? Okay, then the next question. We have sort of three separate questions regarding the state budget, and I'll divide it into those three sections. First, would you support cutting or raising taxes? And if so, which? And the first person is Mr. Imparato for that part of the question.
I am not for raising taxes, obviously. I think that what we need to do is find ways of creating opportunities. I think that we need to look for opportunities that have been lost in the past. We've lost our sweet spot with overtaxation of our taxpayers. We need to look for ways to reduce taxes and increase revenues. An example is, one of the examples might be the boat sale industry here had migrated off to Rhode Island due to Connecticut's restructuring of the taxes on the boat industry. Legislators took a bold move and cut the taxes in half, and we were able to see 44% pickup in that revenue for the state. Removing some of the trust and estate tax would effectively reduce folks from leaving the state, therefore keeping dollars here in the state. I think there's a lot of, again, these words are overplayed, but waste and the opportunity to look at where our money is spent, a really deep dive on finding those dollars. So there's the abuse, there's the fraud, and there's the waste that we need to look at when it comes to the current budget.
Okay, Ms. Comey?
Well, as far as whether I support more taxes, when I go door to door, I have seen that our residents, that the folks that I speak with to really need some relief. I mean, we have a growing inequality here. The middle class jobs are going away. They're disappearing. And as a state, we're over reliant on our property taxes. So I think that it's going to be a complicated dance that we're going to have to do to put Connecticut on a better fiscal path. So, when the state is unstable, it puts communities like Branford on Mr. Imparato knows that it's very difficult to make decisions on the RTM or the Board of Finance when the state is on unstable footing. So I think that there's going to be a chance to really revisit, I'm hoping, the Commission on Fiscal Stability and Economic Growth's plan. They have a pro-growth tax reform way of looking at this issue in a holistic form, and they have some good recommendations. So I'm hoping that that we can really make some progress and just start keeping to chip away without having to put any more pressure on families who need relief.
Do you have anything more you would like to add, Mr. Imperato?
Yes, I just want to say that everyone I speak to knocking on the same doors as Robin is that everyone is concerned about taxes and job growth. And I think that starts right here in Brantford. That's why I will be working to invest dollars on 53 and 56 exits to get dollars here, create job opportunities, bring new businesses to Brantford. So that is something that I will push for and that we need here yesterday. It's been, that exit 53 has been there for since 1992, and we haven't had any movement on that. So one of the things that, again, I will do is make sure that we bring development to exit 53 and 56.
Ms. Comey, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. Yes, I mean, it would be very good to see the development move forward at exit 53 and at exit 56, if appropriate. And I think that also some ways that we can find savings, as I'm not sure what your other questions are. I don't want to go into things that that other things, but making sure that we approach savings, that we can find some savings with healthcare benefits. I did some testifying on the bill that made prescription costs for my family were too high, and able to give some voice and a face to the issues that face our families. And I'm hoping that with that bill that they just passed in Hartford, that a transparency bill, that there's going to be some relief for the state as a whole.
Okay. So I'll go on to that next section for you. That question is, would you recommend spending cuts? And if so, where would you recommend those cuts? And Ms. Comey, you want to start there?
Sure. I think that tax reform is needed. I think that we should exempt businesses who are who have less than $10,000 of property. I think that we can find some savings in regionalization of certain services. I'm a big fan of, and I've seen it work for the health department, and I've seen it work in some other areas where the adult education system, and really making sure that we can do more with less resources. I think that that's working as a region, and approaching things in that manner will save us some money. Also, growing small businesses, which might be your next question. We can talk about that when we get there, but those are my specifics.
Mr. Imperato, about spending cuts?
Well, again, I think we need to do a deep dive into where we're spending our money today. We have no idea. We have a $4.2 billion deficit. So until we get there and we start to peel the onion skin back, we're just not going to know where we're going to make those cuts. And I wouldn't call them cuts. They may be where, again, we have waste, we have fraud, and abuse. So those areas, we may be able to take those dollars and divert them somewhere else. And I agree that healthcare is an issue, and the cost of healthcare today is very costly. So we need to find a way to lower those costs, and that may be one of the issues or solutions that we have in helping where we are with the state.
Okay, so we'll move on to the last section of this on the state budget. And the final question is, what means of increasing revenue would you suggest? And Mr. Imperato, you're first.
Well, again, looking at where we are today, I gave the example of cutting the boat tax in half. That spurred a 44% increase in that industry. So we need to continue to look at those types of opportunities. We need to bring new business to Connecticut. And the way to do that is to create a reliable and a source of transportation, so these particular companies know that they can move their goods in and out of the state, as well as creating a transportation system that will get the employees back and forth. That is critical for any company that is looking at a particular state. The other is stabilizing our taxes, our tax base. If I'm a company and I don't know from one year to the next where my tax base is going to be, I am probably going to knock that one off my list. So, we need to create that atmosphere that we are coming together. We have our transportation under control, we have our taxes under control, and we need to do, again, a deep dive to find where these dollars are going before we add any taxes to anyone in the state of Connecticut, especially Branford. Because this race is really about the state, but it's really about Branford and what we're doing for Branford, Connecticut.
Okay, Ms. Comey?
We do need some growth in this, and obviously, growth is going to be the solution to our most critical issues here in this community and in the state. I think that improving opportunities for small businesses, improving access to capital for small businesses will be helpful. Continuing to support the programs such as the Angel Investor program and the Small Business Express program that will help small business owners. There's a lot of burdens put on small business owners. I can speak to that from my personal experience, and we need to continue to explore ways to grow our small business base in a efficient way. Yes, I mean, I don't know where all this waste and fraud is coming from that Mr. Imperato speaks of, but I think that we're going to grow our way out of it, and we need to make sure that a way to do that is to growth and education, I think, go hand in hand. Regionally, we have, across the country, 20% of our gross national product is on medical and health care, and I think that there's opportunities to continue to support the programs, the innovative programs that have been coming out of some of our colleges, our community colleges, which are giving 2-year degrees for students that when they get out of school, they don't have to spend a ton of money on college education. When they get out of school, they're going to have a great career that pays $75,000 a year. That will keep people here in the state. And they're also working in partnership with businesses to have internships and opportunities to hire folks after they finish school.
Mr. Imperato, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, again, I think a $4.2 billion deficit says that we do have some waste abuse in the system. Again, we are going to grow our way out of this issue, but before we can start doing that, we have to find out where the problems are and correct them. At this point, we just don't know. It is a black hole. So we need to get our financial house in order to attract businesses here. And I believe that we will attract the right people and companies here as we have in the past. But we need to right the ship first.
Ms. Comey, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next question. Should there be changes in Connecticut's laws in order to maintain and/or improve access to health care, either now or with the Affordable Care Act, as repealed in whole or in part? And the first is Ms. Comey.
Mm-hmm. So the Affordable Care Act for me and my family works well. It doesn't work great, But I do know that people do not want their pre-existing conditions to be dropped from the process and from the insurance, and those are really important parts of the healthcare package that is known as Affordable Health Care Act, or as Obamacare. So I want to see improvements. I want to see us to be able to negotiate some of these high pharmaceutical prices, high prescription costs. It's going to save us money in our our state workers' post-employment benefits. It's going to save us money in our Medicare and the seniors that are getting there. I support the Medicare Assistance Program, which provides seniors with additional funds per month to offset some of the costs and with the prescription costs. So I'm all for healthcare. I am definitely, it is my priority when I get up to Hartford to try to make it better so that families like mine don't have to worry about not having to pay for basic needs because they just got a bill from the hospital for $1,200 because their kid had a concussion, or more. So that's a priority for me. I've already been advocating on healthcare issues up in Hartford, and I look forward to continuing the work.
Mr. Imparato?
Yes, again, I believe we need to find a way of lowering costs for health care. Again, our seniors, our young people, it doesn't matter. Health care costs a lot of dollars. Connecticut has already codified the ACA program, so it allows for pre-existing conditions today and allows for students to remain on their parents' insurance up to age 26, as you know. The cost battle for health care will continue to go for years and years and years. We do need to find a way to cap that if we can, but I think again, it's a battle that we're going to continue to fight. So again, we must look at ways to reduce the cost. How do we do that? Maybe it's providing some other types of health care within the system, such as telehealth care, where you can get on your home computer and talk with a physician about your particular ailment that you have, and it may not be a life-threatening ailment, so you can go ahead and reduce the cost of office visits from that. So again, we need to continue to look at ways to soften the burden on each and every person that is involved in the healthcare process.
Okay, would you like to add anything, Ms. Comey?
Yeah, I just was at a meeting the other day, and it came up that some of the healthcare systems, the large conglomerate healthcare systems, such as Yale, are starting to charge facility fees to folks, and it's not covered by insurance. So people are getting fees everywhere from $500 to $200, and sort of all over and these are fees for specialists. We need to find some legislation. I would support legislation to cap those costs, to cap that charge as we start to be the healthcare system is growing and taking over more and more of the players in the market. We need to make sure that we stay on top of them and identify any areas where they're trying to take advantage of our vulnerable.
Mr. Imparato, would you like to add anything?
Yes. Again, what's happening is there is a monopoly going on with Yale right now, and it is very serious on folks have nowhere else to go at this point. So they are charging a fee, an office fee for those particular specialists. So there is a bill that I would provide that will stop that. That, again, is something that the consumer isn't even aware of that's happening until they open their bill and they find that. And that is not fair. It is not being disclosed to them.
Do you have more?
No.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our next question. How will you work to preserve the Connecticut coastline and our infrastructure from the effects of climate change? Mr. Imparato, you're first.
Well, first of all, we do have a beautiful coast, and we need to provide the right resources to keep that. Anyone who lives here on the coast knows that climate, rising sea levels and changes are an issue for every town in Connecticut, but especially the folks on the coast. That community needs to address through a balanced approach with a combination of green infrastructure and hardening of our shoreline to protect our critical structures. And we need to be able to get funding from both our state and federal levels. As you know, Brantford has a hazard mitigation program, which is required by FEMA. And so we are basically ready for what storms may occur. Brantford has I believe two coastal resilience plans. One is through the COGS and another is through a private entity, which we got some grants for, which take in Madison, Brantford, and Milford. So the plan identifies specific areas and offers solutions to that. So again, what we need to do is make sure as a town that we are, maintaining our local culverts and rivers. So again, culverts, seawalls, they need to be in good shape for those surges that might happen. Thank you.
Ms. Comey?
Yeah, I was just thinking yesterday as I was driving through town, I noticed that we had the storm that came through, of course, but also the excessive high tide that came through, and many of our areas, our low-lying areas, were underwater. This is absolutely something that is a priority of mine. I've been an environmentalist for most of my life. I have been teaching children on how to be custodians of and stewards of our environment, and as a Civic Association of Short Beach member for several years. Once we did get hit by the storms, we had to make some very tough decisions. We saw homeowners come to us for zoning issues that were directly impacted from the cause of the storms. So down in Short Beach, we felt it real hard, and climate change is real and it's happening. We're lucky that we have a plan of conservation and development here in this town. I think it's fantastic. It's thorough. They did a fantastic job on this. We need to promote and sustain buildings that are resilient and that in future developments. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that in some of the current buildings that are being built. But once again, just renewable resources and clean energy, I think that should be a priority so that we can leave this wonderful area that we live in and the wonderful planet Earth for generations to come.
Would you like to add anything, Mr. Imparato?
Yeah, again, this is a global issue. It's an issue that will continue to give us headaches. And again, we need to be sure that we are ready for any type of a storm that comes, certainly from our fire and police aspect in our rescue units. So again, making sure that we are doing the right things in the town by creating a coastal resilience plan, having two options, having a plan with FEMA, and getting FEMA in to help us, and looking at those things on a pro basis rather than a post basis.
Ms. Comey?
Yes, and part of that preparation is making sure that our utility companies across the state are prepared and have the resources that they need to come in and get things done swiftly if issues arise, and when they do, because they will. I also want to stress that we need to make sure that our Public Works Department has the resources that they need to do their jobs effectively, and that they have the leadership in place in the location to stage their work out of. So I just continue to support the Public Works Department, our utility companies, and thoughtful planning and zoning as far as in support of our plan of conservation and development.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Mr.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. All right, staying in the environmental area, will you support the restoration of $145 million to the dedicated Clean Energy Fund that was moved into the general fund last year? Ms. Comey, you're first.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you asked. We absolutely need to continue to restore funds for the Green Bank. I have committed to a 40% renewable energy future by 2030. I think that we need to incentivize our clean energy developers to deploy our grid-scale renewables. I think that this will be great for jobs, for job development. We need to protect those opportunities and invest in the energy efficient ways of what we can do for our community.
Mr. Imparato?
Yes. If I was in Hartford, I would never vote to transfer those dollars. Funds that are set aside for special purpose should only be used for that. So I am in favor of moving that back, obviously. And that goes with the transportation issue. Funds going into our transportation fund should stay there. They should not be rated for other opportunities or to pull into the general fund. So again, we should be sure that if we're putting dollars aside for any of these special purposes, those funds should remain there.
Ms. Cohen, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I agree.
Okay. So next question. If elected, would you sponsor legislation to require greater transparency of campaign-related activities and funding, such as PACs? And Mr. Imparato, you're first.
Yes, I would. I think transparency is extremely important in elections. People are voting for individuals who they believe can do the best job for them. And again, we're seeing negative ads all over the country. So having the opportunity to have transparency brought into this process, I think, is one of the things that will help everyone. I just don't believe that folks are saying one thing and then there's a bait and switch. So transparency in where the dollars are coming from, how they're being deployed is extremely important.
Okay, Ms. Comey?
Sure. Yes, I think that, as a candidate, Mr. Imparato and I know that we really want to be put on even ground, on even footing. And when we have PACs or super PACs that come in from out of state or from across different regions of the country, that's a real problem. And they're putting in huge amounts of dollars to sway the elections in one form or another. I specifically do not support the funding of the out-of-state money coming in as far as organizations that might want to spend on behalf of something that they care about locally. I would have to take a closer look at that. But transparency in general is a good way to operate on the government level, and this continues to evolve. It continues to be an important issue, and as we see, there is a large amount of money that is involved in politics, and we can anything that we can do up in the legislature to make sure that folks like Mr. Imparato and I are on even ground would be much appreciated.
Do you have anything you'd like to add, Mr. Imparato?
Yes, PAC money, again, blurs that transparency. Elections are local, they should be kept that way. you know, especially at our level, at Robin and I's level, you know, we're not having millions of dollars thrown at us, but certainly when you look at the Senate races and the governor's races. So again, we should keep this transparent so we know exactly where the money is coming from and who is backing these PACs.
Ms. Comey, anything to add?
No.
Okay. Next question. What is your position on raising the state's minimum wage? Ms. Comey, you're first.
Yes, I support raising the state's minimum wage. I think it will help. The more money people have in their pockets, the more they will spend in our economy, and the more that they can provide a better life for their family members. Right now, as I said earlier, the middle class jobs wages are disappearing. We continue to, as we've moved from manufacturing community to a service-oriented state, there's just more and more jobs that are not getting paid what they should be paid. I would support raising the minimum wage. I know that the Commission's report on fiscal stability also suggested that as a pro-growth reform driver. So I definitely want to see that happen, and I would sign on and support any of that legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Imparato.
Yes, minimum wage or living wage. You know, no one here in Connecticut is going to live on $15, you know, an hour. So we really need to take a closer look at this. You know, increasing may have a negative effect on where some people fall, especially those who are on the Medicare rolls, Medicaid rolls right now, where they're earning around or under that $24,000 mark. $15 may push them over that and now affects their ability to be insured under the current programs. The other thing that I think will be an issue is that swath of folks that are in between that 16 and 18 year olds. I think we have a lot of seasoned or seasonal employees that come in the summer, and employers may not want to hire them now because of this $15. So what I believe is that we need to look at the big picture and look at the downstream effects on this, and then, you know, effectively move forward. So a lot of this is a step program, obviously, where, you know, it's $10 today, $11.10 tomorrow, $13 the following year, and then finally we hit that 15 mark. But I really believe that there's going to be a downstream effect on this, and before we move in a knee-jerk reaction, we should really understand the issues.
Okay, do you have anything you would like to add, Ms. Comey?
No, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Imparato, are you done as well? Because we're almost to closing statements.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we will begin with Mr. Imparato on closing statements of 2 minutes each.
I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for hosting this debate. I also would like to thank Robin Comey for agreeing to have this debate, highlighting important issues facing Brantford and the state. As I stated earlier, I spent my life here in Connecticut. I've committed my life to my family and the community of Brantford. Brantford is our community, and I've pledged to put Brantford first, as I've demonstrated over my past years of service to Brantford. I do not represent any special interest group, but who I do represent are the taxpayers of Brantford. And that's why I've been endorsed by both the Independent Party and the Republican Party. As your state representative, I will fight and vote for what is right for the people of Brantford and not a party politics. We must bring fiscal stability back to Connecticut. We must stop our out-of-control spending on the state level. We cannot continue under our current method of tax and spend. We need to stop and think about what we're doing, and we can't tax our way out of things. It's driving people from their homes, forcing companies to leave. More taxes is not the way to grow our economy or create jobs. It does just the opposite. My professional business experience in finance and banking solutions, management and leadership and coaching skills span over 40 years. Those years, I've dedicated my life to understanding the needs of the consumer as well as small business owners, and have played an instrumental role in navigating through financial roadblocks to achieve them. I've worked with the Board of Finance and the RTM. I've gained a tremendous understanding of how government operates, including all aspects of budgeting, appropriation, expenditures, and taxation over 8 budgets.
Thank you very much. Ms. Comey?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Carol, thank you to Elise, and of course Bob Imparato for being here with me. This has been an honor of a lifetime to run for state representative. I've grown professionally and personally, and that has been the greatest part. I've met a lot of new friends on the campaign trail. I've met residents that are hardworking and they're compassionate, and they would do anything for anyone, and that's the Branford that I know, and that's the Branford that I want to represent as state representative. I bring a small expertise of a small business owner. I know the challenges of nonprofit work, and I'm a convener. I believe I have the skills necessary that is needed up in Hartford. I have years' experience approaching systemic, big picture change through thoughtful, cooperative ways, and also being tough. I've fought and I've succeeded in passing policies that improve lives every day. I mean, I know hard work, and I know the issues that our community faces. As a parent, I will do all I can to make sure that we have good schools, that our neighborhoods are safe, that we have clean air and clean water, and that we have affordable, accessible health care. I want my kids to love Branford as much as I do, and want to stay here and raise their family here as well. And I'll just close with a little bit of a proverb. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And I would love your vote on November 6th so that we can go far together. Thank you.
Thank you. We thank the Branford Community TV for broadcasting this debate. We also thank the League of Women Voters Voter Service Chairperson, Elise Lowe, for organizing all of our debates. And thank you to the candidates for participating in a lively and informative debate. Now it is your turn as voters to speak. Please show up to the polls on November 6th. They will be open between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. and register your vote for some candidate that you prefer. Thank you very much.